Hey guys, it's the Comics Kid 2099, and this is an episode of insert name or company here, stole my idea. If you have been watching my channel for a little while, I have done two videos called Marvel Stole My Idea. And basically, before you get angry at me for suggesting this kind of video is done mostly in jest. I understand that a lot of people who like to think of themselves as creative types, they tend to have ideas that are very similar sometimes. And one person might go forward with an idea and someone else will say, I had an idea very similar to that. Now this story is doing that. If you saw my video about a week ago where I was saying some of the things that I would like to see in the Man of Steel movie, go watch that video, and then when you watch the Man of Steel movie, you'll be like, wow, did he see the movie? I did not. I promise you, I did not see the movie before making that video. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. This is not me being serious and being all angry and saying, well, that person stole my idea, because I know that in this case, I'm talking about Mark Waid. I know that Mark Waid has never heard of me. I know that he has never looked at a single idea of mine, and even if he had, he can come up with really awesome ideas on his own. He doesn't need me to come up with ideas for him. So let's just get right into this episode. As I said, the previous two videos that are very similar to this were Marvel Stole My Idea. Well, this time I'm talking about Mark Waid. This is in regards to an indie comic book called Irredeemable, written by Mark Waid. Before I talk about that, I want to talk about this. If you recognize that cover, then you recognize that cover. If you don't, this is for the book The Dark Knight Strikes Again. Written by Frank Miller, drawn by Frank Miller, I think inked by Lynn Varley. I don't know Lynn Varley. So, if you've read it, you know this is a little bit of a, what's the word? The book is not very well loved by people. Some people like this book a lot more than its predecessor, The Dark Knight Returns. I am not one of those people. But this book is a sequel to the book The Dark Knight Returns. Dark Knight Returns came out around 1986, I think, and it basically was Batman in the future, but the story still felt very much like a story in the 1980s. Batman was around 50 or late 50s, and he returned to the mantle of Batman to clean up his city once again. And in a way, it worked very well as the last Batman story. Then they made a sequel, making it the next last Batman story. And this sequel was made some 13 years later. So it's not exactly it's kind of like when they make a sequel to Indiana Jones or Crocodile Dundee, and they wait like 20 years, and people are like, oh, they really didn't need to do that. That's kind of my opinion here. They really didn't need to do a sequel way so long after the previous story, but they did. So, this book also has Superman in it, and the very end of the book, near the very end, you've got, this is a little bit of a spoiler, so in fact, I'm just going to put my thumb up. While my thumb is up, I will be spoiling The Dark Knight Strikes Again. If you have not read this book and you want to, or you do not want to be spoiled, mute the video. As long as my thumb is up, I will be talking spoilers. So, here we go. In this book, this is going to be hard because I want to hold up a page. Superman and Wonder Woman have a daughter. You can kind of see her there. See, my thumb is still up. Okay, that's Superman's daughter with Wonder Woman. And one of the last things that we see with Superman here, he and his daughter are looking at planet Earth, and Superman says, what are we going to do with our planet now? It's a very sinister line, especially coming from Superman. And Frank Miller, for those of you who aren't aware of the man behind this book, he's kind of got a, he's very politically polarizing. A lot of people who read comics probably would disagree with a lot of his political statements. He's sort of I don't even want to really get into it because I myself am not hugely into politics, and I'm sure if I tried to explain his political views, it would kind of make it would seem like I don't really know what I'm talking about, because if I'm being honest, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I won't go there. But needless to say, I don't really think Frank Miller understands Superman, and I don't think he did in this book. I don't think he did in The Dark Knight Returns. But he's got Superman here acting much more as a controller of Earth. He is not a protector, he is not a guide, he is more of an angry parent who is going to take direct action, and he is going to mold this world in a way that he sees fit. At least, that is how I read the last scene of this book, or the last scene with Superman. My idea came after I read this. I read it about 10-ish years ago. I read this book shortly after I had read The Dark Knight Returns in year one. I read all those books very close together. And when I read that, I thought, you know what they need to do? They need to do a story that is a sequel to that. Just do, like, Superman, The Dark Knight Returns or whatever. Because, if I'm being honest, this book doesn't have Batman in it that much. It's really more of a story that focuses on the rest of the Justice League. And so I thought, well, if Frank Miller didn't want to use Batman that much in The Dark Knight Strikes Again, what if he did a third story set in this world, and it could just be strictly a Superman story? And like I said, he doesn't really understand Superman, but then again, his version of Batman is very different than the normal version of Batman, so I think it would be okay to see the Frank Miller version of Superman, especially one that's set that far in the future, 30, 40 years in the future. And my idea was, well, they should just do a Superman story where he's kind of decided that he's going to take over the world. And, of course, this story, if they had done that, it would have involved his daughter, and it also would have involved all the people of the city of Kandor have, like, in the end of this story, they've grown to human size. If you don't know, the city of Kandor is about that big, and so all the inhabitants are, I guess you couldn't really see that, like, that big, maybe? There we go. All the inhabitants are microscopic, but the city itself is from Krypton, so when these people are under a yellow sun, they've got Superman's powers. And the story ends with all these people growing to full size, and suddenly you've got an entire city full of Kryptonians, plus this guy right here who kind of is saying, what shall we do with our planet? And as if that's not sinister enough, the only thing that can make it more sinister is if he was twirling his mustache. Now, once again, that is how I read the book. Perhaps when you read it in a different way. Maybe you're not seeing what Superman says as being very sinister. I just happen to see it that way. So, what does this have to do with Mark Waid? Mark Waid, some years back, I don't know when this series started, he started a indie comic book series at Boom Studios called Irredeemable. And basically, the premise is, you've got this character, I don't even know his name, because if I'm being honest, I haven't read Irredeemable, so bad me for not reading it. I've heard it's great, and I want to read it once the whole series is over. So it's not that I'm avoiding it, I am, but I'm avoiding it until it's done, and then I'll read it all in one fell swoop. So, now that I have gone on that little tangent, you've got this series by Mark Waid called Irredeemable. Irredeemable is about a Superman-esque figure. He is like the golden boy superhero of this world. He's, very white bread, very wholesome, and he basically just snaps. He kind of says, you know what, all these people, they're very cynical, this is a very dark world, it's time for me to update, it's time for me to change with the times. And this character, I don't even know his name, he becomes like this tyrant with Superman's powers. And the whole book is kind of a play on the words, absolute power corrupts absolutely, that sort of thing. And it's saying that, if Superman really did exist, it would be a terrifying thing. It wouldn't be this golly gee Mr. White that we get in the comics. And, of course, Mark Waid is he's a fan of Superman from the Silver Age. He is probably one of the most intelligent, not intelligent's not the word, I'm sure he is. He is very knowledgeable about Silver Age history, about DC Comics history. And he also wrote the book Kingdom Come with artist Alex Ross. And that whole book was basically a thesis explaining why the dark age of comics that began in the 1990s, or really actually began in the 80s, why that whole dark age is just a terrible thing and that heroes should act heroic. So, I don't think Irredeemable is Mark Waid trying to say, Superman is stupid, this is how Superman should really be handled. I don't really think that's what he's doing. Granted, I haven't read it, so I can't especially comment on it. I just think that, judging by what we've seen from Mark Waid in the form of Kingdom Come, I think he's more along the lines of, he's a fan of the wholesome, pure superheroic ideal. So, basically, my idea, as I said, came after I read this book. And when I was 13, 14, somewhere around that time, and I had read this story, I was under the impression that it's okay to take a character like Superman, change his name. Let's say you wanted to tell a story about Superman, but you don't work for DC Comics, so you can't tell a story about Superman. So let's say you changed his name to Hyperman. And let's say you did a story where Hyperman decided that he was going to take over the planet. And the first page of the story has Hyperman and his daughter saying, "What shall we do with our planet, my dear?" That was kind of my thoughts. You see this kind of thing in Mark Grunwald's Squadron Supreme from the 1980s, and then in the early 2000s, J. Michael Straczynski, he did the same thing with the reboot of Squadron Supreme called Supreme Power. You see this kind of thing where those stories, they're done by Marvel Comics, but they are stories about the Justice League, just with a different name. They're not called the Justice League, they're called the Squadron Supreme, and you know, Hyperion is Superman, Nighthawk is Batman. So I was in a point in my life reading comics where I thought it's okay to tell a story about Superman if you change his name a little bit. So my idea was, as I said, pick up straight up where this book left off and do a Superman story where Superman sort of becomes the villain of the piece. And how does the world react to this? How does Superman react to the world reacting to this, etc.? And as I said, this is an idea that we've seen a little bit in Mark Waid's Irredeemable, and also another book I haven't mentioned is called The Mighty by Peter Tomasi, I think. And this is a book that not many people talk about, at least not nearly as many people as the ones who talk about Irredeemable. But with Irredeemable, it was more or less an ongoing series. I think it's gone some 50 issues, and I think it's still going. The Mighty, I think, was only 12 issues long, and you can get it in 2 trade paperbacks. And it's basically the same premise. You have this Superman character who slowly, over the course of the book, you're realizing that he is very sinister and not entirely wholesome. So, it's different from Irredeemable, where, from what I understand, Irredeemable basically begins with the Superman character just snapping, whereas The Mighty is a slow realization of that. So, like I say, this idea is not an especially original one. When I came up with it, it probably wasn't very original even then. So, like I say, this isn't one of those things where I typed this idea somewhere and then Mark Waid and Peter Tomasi snuck into my room and they were reading my ideas and then they're like, hee hee hee, we've got an idea that we stole from that guy. I don't really think that happened, obviously. And I'm very much looking forward to reading Irredeemable. I have heard so many good things about this series. And there's a spin-off called Incorruptible, which is about I think the Lex Luthor type of this world, basically becoming a good guy. So it's the reverse of Irredeemable. I'm very much looking forward to reading all of that. But like I said, it's one of those things, it looks like it's a very much a complete story that's just very long, you know, some 50 to 60 issues, and I just want to read it all in one big chunk instead of reading it, waiting half a year, reading another volume. I don't want to do that. So, that is my idea that was stolen. Well, I cannot reiterate these things enough. What do you guys think? Is my idea too similar to Irredeemable? Is it not at all similar? Since I haven't read that, maybe, for all I know, what I just described to you guys about the end of this book has nothing to do with what Irredeemable was about. Who knows? I hope you enjoyed this video. I know this isn't an especially deep video. I just kind of rambled for however long I rambled. I hope you enjoyed it anyway. And if you did, I will really hope that you guys will click the like button. I hope you guys share, comment, subscribe. Do all of those things, please, for my benefit. And after you do that, I will see you guys tomorrow with a different kind of video. Until then, peace out. I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.